you were looking forward to something specific. You couldn't quite figure out what it was. And that's when you realized what you wanted was the familiar, jostle free experience of Eric live. You can safely assume little to nothing will happen or even really be said. And wait, they're already hot. Well, anyway, is that familiar? Did Eric forget he was live streaming? Charm you've grown so addicted to over the years. My audience swells into the thousands because it's incredibly compelling content. Like, what are we doing today, Eric? Well, one thing we're gonna do, and this is pretty weighty stuff. We're gonna look for the mouse. We're gonna try to find it, and if we do find it, boy, are things gonna be different from now on. From now on, we're living in a yes mouse world. We're no longer handicapped by the lack of a mouse. So anyway, obviously right now, appropriately, significantly, I am talking to myself because, after all, this is just familiar, jostle-free live Eric. There's nothing more to recommend it than that. If you enjoy, say, riding in a carefully pushed baby pram down a very smooth sidewalk, even though you just keep going the same sidewalk over and over again, well, this is the place for you. Where a familiar, jostle free live experience can be had, consistently relied upon to be familiar, sometimes jostle free. Okay, because you're a curve surfer. You know what the curve surfer represents? Just the front little speck of a huge wave of people. We're just moments away from having a million people here, okay? They just have to figure out, oh my God, we should be there. I haven't figured it out yet, but they're this close. You should be asleep, Kay. What are you doing up? What time is it for you? Is it 4:20 in the morning? Did somebody say 4:20? I believe it was I. I said 4:20. 1 p.m. you're having lunch. No. You got it all wrong, Kate. 1 p.m. You should either be getting up or going back to bed. One of those two things at 1 p.m. It's like a lot of times I get up in the morning. I really should be back in bed by 11 a.m. though. 1 p.m. seems like it's asking a bit much of myself. I have had a busy day. As busy a day as anybody since Andrew Dice Clay at his all-time busiest. I don't fuck with sleep because sleep fucks with me. I can't seem to have a lighter. I guess this is why we can't have nice things. Like, why don't I have a lighter with me? How does that happen? How does that even happen, ever? Like I already said goodnight to Rachel. Close the door. Then I'm gonna have to go back in there and bother her again to get a lighter that I should never have put in there in the first place, except for the fact that obviously I was getting the house all ready for stuff, so I put things in weird places. Hi, darling. I'm just coming here to get a lighter. Oh, okay. Put them all in here. I was just saying, like, why do you put them all there? And I remember, well, because I had to put them someplace. Yeah. So it's fair that I put them in there this time. Normally, I would have just been a fool for putting them in there. But this time I get a pass. You woke up at 5 a.m. because of some light flickering? No. The universe doesn't want me to move my necessary objects from my space where I use them most frequently. But I had to because we had this home tour thing today. Anyway, still riding a bit of post-party, post-Saturday high, you know. First of all, I took that 30 milligrams of dexedrine, maybe, in the morning yesterday morning, and I'm still riding the amps from it. It really did the job beautifully, and I kicked all kinds of ass. But it is a little surprising that it's still riding so strong in me. I can still feel it, you know. Makes me wonder if maybe inside those, what I call dexedrine pills, is a different kind of amphetamine. You know, like the best kind of amphetamine, possibly. I mean, that certainly did the trick. Like, bam, put a hand on everything. Plenty of energy left, too. After putting a hand on everything in the morning, cook a full turkey dinner with mashed potatoes and gravy and stuffing and cranberry sauce and everything all by myself. No problem. Piece of cake. Easy as pie. I can tell the difference, KE, between um, socialization dopamine high and still have some gack in me. In fact, it's like I didn't really notice the gack so much in me still until I took Clonopin, which killed the remnants of the mushroom trip from earlier, because we took a little bit of mushrooms earlier. Like everybody just took a teeny little bit, but they're quite strong, I guess, because I just had like one mushroom like just like a little skinny one too, you know, like this big, and got me tripping pretty good actually for such a little amount of mushrooms. So I was kind of figuring my amperage was just due to the mushrooms. I took a half a Klonopin. I can feel the edge of the amphetamines more clearly. It's like it's I can feel where the Cloney's like softening it or something. Hi, Carlos Paella. You ever did any shrooms? I did some though. Shrooms can be great or bad or anything in between. It's like last night, the shrooms wanted us all to do them, and they all wanted us to do a little bit of them, and we did, and they were rewarded. They rewarded us for using them wisely by everybody having a good time. Cameron's the only one who didn't eat any of them. Well, I don't think it's perfectly spherical, Jeremiah picks. As Carlos and KE jump on the correction train alongside of me. So yeah, mushrooms are good if you do them right, and they're great. They're right. A nice like mood transition for the party. You know, when we each took one of those little mushrooms, except for Cameron, and so I could feel it in like half an hour. Like, oh, my mood has shifted. I'm a little more giggly, a little more interested in mushed out things. Of course you are, KE. You acknowledge no sensei, okay? Whoever it is you learn from, they're not a sensei or anything else. They're just some random fuck you learn something from, okay? So just fuck off. The only sensei around here is me, motherfuckers. That's what KE says. Me too. We both had the same thing going on. I don't have any 30 figures. 30 figures can suck my authority. Why it's just so ridiculous listening to this guy. Yeah, I know. Well, but the difference, KE, between you and other random fucks is 99.99999% of the time, you're going to be way righter than they are. Even if you're still wrong, you'll still be way righter than them. I owe him respect because of his tone and because he is a man. Are you owe me respect? Because I was being respectful, okay? That's not how you talk to a man. Was it something like that? Is that how you're framing it? Is that why you phrased what you said to me? Yeah, the way you phrased it? Because he really said something like that, huh? I got you and I unpantsed you. Deal with it. Deal with it. Those are your badge lips flapping in the wind because I just unpantsed the truth. And KE, you need to acknowledge that Carlos Paiva can, against your will, force you to be his sensei whether you want to or not. So you need to acknowledge that. After all, I forced Carlos Paiva to be my sensei. I didn't even talk to him about it. He didn't even know until this moment, probably, that he had been forced to be my sensei. That's how deft I am in my forcing of things. People can't even tell they're being forced. Like, I believe I'm doing this of my own volition. Never do it again. I hope you use the technique we worked on earlier, K.E. I'm fine. I can't understand you. And you know what, Carlos Paiva? I think I'm willing to commit. I'm willing to commit. From now on, Carlos's Paiva's truth is everyone's truth all the time. There. I just did it. I just signed the deal in blood, Carlos Paiva. Your truth is now everyone's truth all the time. It also gets the title of being the best truth. Well, what I would have said, if somebody's like, multiple marriages are a values failure of the individual, I'd be like, couldn't it just be I was shitty at picking chicks? Which is how it actually is. Maybe I was just really shitty at picking chicks, you know? Um, is that your truth, Carlos Paiva? It depends. If your truth is that you are God, then that becomes everyone's truth necessarily. But if you're asking me if that's your truth, then it clearly must not be your truth, because otherwise it would be more definitive than that. So I'm going to say no, based on the preceding reasonings. I think those are fair reasonings to offer as justification for my answer of no. Don't you agree, Carlos? I think Carlos probably agrees with that as well. Given the reasonings I just presented, he also agrees that he's not God. Because it's not his truth. Because his truth, he wouldn't have to ask me about. And no, you can't change your mind now. It's too late for that. There's no take backsies. No take backsies is a good rule. In all things in life. No take backsies. Hey, can I see the salt when you're done with it? No take backsies. I never had it in the first place. What's your point? That therefore it can't be a take backseat. Well, listen, K.E., I can barely read enough of your text to see the words. It would appear to be, no, that's a bad point. I am just relieved and blessed that I am unable to read any further words from you because those initial words were directed at me. Wow. Clearly, you are wrong. Conditionally, as per the everything I just said, you know. Smoking a cigarette and having to poop are two things that you can do. I'm going to smoke and move around. Hopefully, the poop will move towards the ground. Then, when I'm done, I'll go sit in the toilet seat and poop again. I'm going to poop. Live poop. Because live streaming makes me poop. As does moving around like this. it helps you to poop to shake loose. I'm gonna do a YouTube series called Shake Your Poop Loose, an all-natural YouTube remedy to constipation. Come on, girls. We're gonna shake your poop loose. And then there'd be some like jazzy music playing in the background. There's about 10 more reps, girls. That's it, you're all beautiful out there. Just 10 more reps. And then you're gonna be ready to poop. It's only girls who watch those things, so you just call everybody who watches it girls. You have to pretend to be gay, then it's acceptable. If you're gay, then you can call women girls. Come on, girls. Get with it and shake those booties. But if I'm straight, I'm like, come on, girls, shake that ass. Then it's considered douchey, you know? For the very good reason that it is douchey. And it's awful, and people not treating each other like individuals again. But by gaining it up by 40% or so, then I'm going to go, oh, he's fun like George Michael. Come on, girls, you can do it. Put your hips into it. You're beautiful out there. And you've got this. People eat that shit up. I don't know why either. I do know why. Because they're like sensors or something, or like into self-improvement by making their body different. Oh, look, I'm dirty with my body. Oh, look at me. No, I'm sweaty and enlightened. No, you're just sweaty and listening to some guy encourage you to move around more. Next week, it's water fasting. Then we're going to start retaining different fluids. We'll segue into Pilates and yoga, then back into poop shake loose. My original form of fitness martial arts that I learned from Eric. Yeah, poop shake loose is an ancient Chinese martial art. Of course it is. The Chinese mastered these things long before us lowly Westerners even dreamed of it. Poop shake loose was on its way to becoming one of the dominant forms of Kung Fu before they started introducing animals into Kung Fu. And all of a sudden, Poop Shake Loose was competing against like tigers and dragons and whatever else, you know. Prior to that, they'd only been competing against plants. You know, the sitting bamboo style Kung Fu was a popular one for a while. And the slowly growing tuber was a popular Kung Fu style for a while. The shame felt is the choice of the corrected. You should, okay, I'm going to correct your sentence. I'm going to improve it. I'm not going to correct it. Anything wrong with it, I'm going to improve it. Shame is the remedy available to those who are corrected. Shame is the only remedy available to the corrected. Shame be the truest remedy to the wrong. Oh, yes, your argument still stands, Kay. It stands proud and tall, like I do. I stand proud and tall in my transracial, transgender, transageal, um, and trans epic as well. EPOCH. I exist in different epics of human history. So just regarding the ego, who will be crushed by such an evaluation? How do I verify the assertion? What's the assertion? It depends what the assertion is, you know. If the assertion is, you suck, there's no way to verify that assertion or falsify it. Unless you're talking about them literally sucking, in which case we all suck occasionally on something. Now, if the assertion is more like, your tone, gender, and conviction are irrelevant in this context, sir, because I have corrected you. The only acceptable response to being corrected is to reflect upon how you had ended up wrong in the first place and adjust your worldview accordingly with the updated correction. Not to get mad at me for helping you become less wrong. Okay, that's the speech that I'm giving on your behalf. You know, try the sympathy route. I get it. Hey, it's never fun being the slow learner. But, you know, each of us have our strengths and deficits area. This is a teachable moment for me and a learnable moment for you. What I want you to learn from this is that your tone does not impress me any more than you'd be impressed if I kicked you in the balls. Yeah, well, what the thing is, Kate, I feel you. I know when the moment's got you emotionally engaged. Oh God. Oh God. There's another mouse inside. Cats have another mouse. All right. Thing is, if you don't have that anger that's making you like, you know, if you can pull yourself back from it a bit and try to savor the moment, and just pause. Let me just look at them for a second. What am I going to say here? How am I going to exploit this opportunity? The cat's just doing her job. She doesn't need to bring her work home, okay? The only reason the mouse is in the house in the first place is because she brought it in here. It's like hiring a maid who comes in and spills shit all over your floor and then cleans it up. That's not doing their job. If you could do your job better by just letting the mouse stay outside in the first place. Right. Some people you need for survival, not all people. And to survive in a comfortable way, you need to make people who are unjust and wrong suffer for their crime. Yes, exactly. So true. It doesn't matter if it was a random person or not, Jeremiah Fix. The point is, an injustice occurred. KE was using language to convey information. This guy didn't like the information, so he told her to stop conveying it. Okay. He needs to be slapped fucking hard, sat down, and explained to that information is for people to use, not to be afraid of. I'm very pissed on Kay's behalf because people who don't want to listen to you because they feel scared of the information you're providing them, you need to grow the fuck up. That's not how you have a relationship with information. Yeah, they try to mute you. We're not wasting time. We don't know that we're wasting time until they say something incredibly fucking stupid. We afford people the benefit of the doubt that they can hear the words we say and understand what they mean. It's like the alternative is to just treat everybody like an infant. You gotta treat everybody the same, Jeremiah Fix. It doesn't work if you have different ways of treating people in different contexts. Like, I'm gonna give you all the information because I believe you can handle all the information and will make a good use of it. But I'm only gonna give you some of the information because I believe I know better about how you should use information than you do. I don't think you're exactly testing people, Jeremiah Pigs. I think you're engaging people. A test is something very different than engaging people with questions. Yeah, you can test the waters, but to test a proposition is to uh, approach the question in a way that either validates or falsifies it. Which means it needs to be narrowly construed. Things like, is KE smart or something is not the sort of thing you can test. It's not narrowly construed enough. You can draw your own conclusions about that based on certain pieces of evidence or whatever. But it's unlikely that answers to questions are going to give you better evidence regarding that question than just observation. But who am I to tell you how to use your epistemologies? You use them how you want. You self identify as whatever you want. I don't care. Because you know why? I'm not you. I'm just me. I'm the familiar jostle free live air experience that you're so familiar with and expect to provide you, or at least a relatively jostle free ride. I plan to deliver on those implied promises. In this particular live stream title, perhaps you could say it's an explicit promise, but it's not intended as a promise for all time. Like I can't guarantee that every live stream experience will be entirely jostle free. If I were to guarantee that, then it would also be very, very free of anything worth paying attention to at all. And if it was completely jostle free, it would just be silent picture of something pleasant. So, you gotta split the difference between entirely jostle free and just jostle mania like flow states. watching watching a little bit of flow state last night in the garage after I stopped the live stream. I went over there. Oh, you talk about a jostle full environment. There's a lot of jostling going on over there. And a lot of just like, not from Taylor. Taylor's a smart guy, but a lot of like juvenile pseudo philosophy discussions and stuff. Like I think I was saying in the live stream after I saw that last night. Some guy was talking about how people don't get it. They see a PhD after someone's name and they just go, "Oh, I guess he must be right," and it's like they don't even think, they don't question. It's like, okay, what is this? What is this ridiculous rant against conformity or whatever? Who, like, obviously the guy doesn't think that about himself, apparently. So why does he assume that everybody else, or even the vast majority of people, are unable to look past credentials and beyond expertise? Of course, whether or not one does look beyond credentials and expertise and towards the actual argumentation is almost entirely contingent on whether you are an interface knower type or a deliberation action type. But the point is, him projecting his weak ass function bias, like it wasn't even, it's not, it's a function bias in favor of like deliberation action, right? But it's so juvenile. I don't even know what type this guy could be. Like, does he think he's making some point that other people haven't thought about or heard, or I don't even know. I just couldn't listen to it for very long before I got too jostled and I had to leave. Because, it's like I can't go busting in on, even if Taylor's like, hey, the link's, pinned to the chat, Eric, join us. And I'm like, thanks, Taylor, but I didn't join, but cause I can't just go roll in there and be like, all right, you people are so retarded. And I'm just here to explain to you that this is not meaningful discourse. This pantomime of communication you are engaged in is exactly that and nothing more. So, if I get maybe you enjoy this process, that's fine. But I want to crush every last one of your delusions. If you have any notion that what you're saying is significant, insightful, meaningful, original, or worth saying in any fucking sense of the word. I obviously can't just go in there and say all that stuff. But what else could I possibly say that would be true, insightful, meaningful, worth saying? All the things that this guy is not producing. I don't know what else to say about it except this is garbage. Here's why. What else can you say to that guy? I mean, what's wrong with it is was I guess in particular two elements of it that I found annoying. It's not like he's wrong that some people do that, and that can obviously that's not consistent with the deliberation values, But his the thing that annoyed me about it was how he seemed to be thinking that he was explaining something to people that they'd not considered before. And they carried on about it for such a long time as though he were making a point, right? There are a bunch of people on this panel talking about some subject. He brings up his relevant point about it. Except his relevant point is just so dumb and pointless to say. I don't even remember if it was relevant or not because I'm not sure what the topic was, but it's like, I don't know. It's like, I remember when I heard, what's his name? Bruce Willis. It may have been, this may have marked a very, very early symptom of his eventual dementia, but maybe not. I don't know. Like in his 40s or something, he started getting all into atheism and was like saying to everybody, that thing that you have faith in, there's actually no reason to believe in it. As though this were news, right? Like, as though I've just found some very hidden shit that I need to share with you. And it's just like basic level atheist bullshit. That's how this guy was sort of seeming to me. Like, yeah, people do that, but the thing is, you're just at the very top surface level of even thinking about it. Have you reflected upon the fact that you apparently don't view yourself as doing that? Why do you presume everybody else does that? Do you have specific examples in mind that you're citing when you're referencing this thing occurring? Is this a hypothesis that you've generated to explain people deferring to experts in situations that you think they should defer to your reasoning? Can you give an example of such reasoning? It's like this would be considering that reasonable enough topic in an interesting way, right? There's zero things interesting at all about the way he was talking about it, thinking about it. He hadn't even done the second level of reflection on the topic, let alone the third, fourth, fifth, It it was like a pantomime of metacognition in the absence thereof. That's the best way to say why it annoyed me. It was a pantomime of metacognition in the absence thereof. Perfectly reasonable thing to get annoyed at. Well, now that I've summed it up, though, Carlos Pava, maybe you understand what I'm saying. It was a pantomime of metacognition in the absence thereof. If that doesn't get your sass flowing, I don't know what will. Then you just completely have no sassafras left. Is looking for confirmation irrelevant? Well, I mean, if somebody's making a claim, you don't look for confirmation, right? You either dispute it or you don't. If you don't dispute it, silence equals assent. If you do dispute it, then you dispute it on one or more grounds. If everybody thought about language that way, we'd all have a Merry Christmas, right? And then we'd really be talking about things when we talk about things instead of just going through the motions of talking about things. And it's like you made a claim. I need to confirm it. No. You made a claim. I dispute it. You need to meet the burden of the affirmation. Go for it. That's how it works. It doesn't work any other way. It fails to work every other way. That's why it works that way and not every other way. I know that's circular reasoning. Some things are like that in life. They are how they are because that's how they are. And they're not some other way, you know? Like cognitive functions. But why are there cognitive? Look, things are how they are. They're that way because they're that way and not some other way. But the explanation, the map of the thing, is distinct from reality, right? So is it the case that people have this thing called extroverted feeling? Well, if you want to treat language in the most idiotic possible way, then the answer is no. They have a tension that we call extroverted feeling, and this label is a set label for this quantity of things and this quality of things, and is defined and constrained accordingly, etc. But you know, doesn't mean we don't. It's like I don't remember hearing this argument before. It was the most ridiculous argument I've ever heard against cognitive functions. Well, people don't actually have a cognitive function. Tracy Cuxer says, Cuxer, huh? Eric, as an EHP, how do I deal with using alcohol as my societal superpower, or should I just not worry about it? Tracy Cuxer, if you can use alcohol to empower yourself, more power to you. I'm not a person to ask for advice about that because I cannot handle alcohol. I'm a horrible alcoholic. So I have to just do other drugs than that. Experience doesn't agree with you, Jeremiah Fix. You have an experience, right? You can agree with or dispute claims about that experience. You don't validate or invalidate based on agreement. You determine whether something needs to be validated based on whether you dispute it, in which case it needs to be validated, or you don't dispute it, in which case it doesn't. Obviously, you're not going to make people validate parts of an argument that you already agree with. So we both agree that we both think that we're arguing for what's best for the United States, right? Yes, we both agree that each of us says we want what's best for the United States. I don't doubt the sincerity that you want what's best for the United States, You don't doubt the sincerity that I want what's best for the United States. Neither of us is accusing the other one of being a spy, right? Or treasonous. We're beginning the debate under the understanding that we're both Americans who disagree with each other, but who both want the best for the country. So that's the sort of thing that a lot of times never gets expressly stated and agreed with, but is nevertheless a predicating assumption upon which certain arguments are not opened up, right? So by not disputing things, certain areas of ground of argumentation remains closed to you. You have no way to access that ground. I love talking about debate. I think it's the most informative thing anybody can ever talk about. It's more informative than cognitive functions because cognitive functions are harder for people to understand because they involve both intuition and introverted thinking. You know, you can't validate it fully with just introverted thinking, and it's a fairly complex explanation ultimately. I mean, it's not really that complicated, but it has a lot of moving pieces, right? It's because it's a model of human consciousness, it unavoidably has a lot of moving pieces. Oh my God, somebody around here does not know how to use bathrooms. They close the seat down, like the top seat, like the seat you never close, right? And then they did not flush their pee. Well, we don't play water conservation Waldo around here. We pay $600 a year for unlimited water. Unlike the rest of the state, we're not drawing from any state water resources. We've got water towers with wells and presumably cistern collection things as well. I'm not sure about that. So you might say, well, you're pulling groundwater. Well, yeah, but like at a sustainable level. Like the amount of groundwater that's being, it's also constantly being cycled back into the system because of everyone's septic designs around here. So, for the newer homes anyway, the septic designs are such that it gets filtered, the liquids get filtered back into the water table via like shit tons of sedimentary rock and stuff like that. Apparently, I'm not a septic expert, but anyway, the point is, I'm not trying to save water. I hear you meowing. What do you want? You want me to go outside? Okay, well, okay, all right. You want to go outside? Go outside. But I need to get some glasses. No trouble. This is what you're not respecting. So, until I get some glasses, I come in here and read what it says on the screen that I can read from. Oh, there are my glasses. I knew I saw them someplace. They were conveniently located over there. Now I can see what you're saying. Well, there's a lot of stuff. Let me go outside and smoke if I'm going to read all this stuff. I got to go way back up and start working my way down. Look, just like cognitive functions are a set of rules that tell people how to pay attention, so too is argumentation not a set of rules that tell people how to argue. It's a logic observed, and that's how reality is, right? You're not accustomed to using language precisely to describe it, but that's how it always is. You're making a claim, I'm disputing it, right? What do you want? What are you yelling at me about? And let me go back to the top. Okay. You ask people about some topic and observe how they do for X. I could be dumb and still right. True. Some people are not necessarily wrong. Yeah, sure, the soundness of an argument is independent of the person. That's because they're inherently communicative, right? You can take my winning argument and use it to win as well, if you can use it as well to win. What do you want? Can anything be truly jostle free these days? Eric, will you write a dear song about the holiday pillow on the floor? Maybe I will, show media. Maybe I will. Okay, will you stop meowing at me, please? Probably just finding FE validation, finding a lot of people who agree with them for satisfaction. But if you were doing that, Carlos Pava, I would expect him to, instead of kindly saying, people, everyone does meow, he would have been more like, accepting present company, of course. The problem is the dummies out there do this, not us here. But he wasn't even doing that. He was just being like, lecturing everybody about not just how people are, but suggestively anyway, how they are, without any good cause to think he has any business making such observations. One doesn't need to do all that to convey an observation. Well, it depends what kind of observation you're making, you know. I don't know what all that is anyway. I hear you meowing. What do you want? What do you want? I hear you. Yes, I know you're meowing. You want to go inside? Go inside. Go. That cat. He's looking for confirmation irrelevant when me or you make claims. I've already read that part. Eric, as an EHP, how do I deal with using alcohol? I already read that part. How was dinner? Dinner was delicious. I did a great job. Thank you very much. I cooked the turkey, the stuffing, the potatoes, gravy. I did not cook the cranberry sauce. I just poured it out of the can. I've read that part. If you're not overlaying an interpretation, if it's purely observational, it should not be suspect. Well, I mean, the thing to remember is to stop doing this thing. If it's purely observational, right? In this case, you're saying, if you are, in the first part of the sentence, if you are not overlaying an interpretation, that's a correct usage of language, right? In the second half of that, you switch to this passive voice with, it's not really passive voice, but it's got a it's got a pronoun with no antecedent, so it doesn't reference anything in particular. And it says, if it's purely observational, suggesting that somehow, while you would overlay an interpretation, you wouldn't make an observation. The observation just is, right? Incorrect. Observations, whenever they're made in any way that counts, are statements that are either stated as observations, in other words, I'm stating this as an observation, which means neither of us should disagree with this at all. We should both, I want us to both formally agree with it nevertheless. Like observation, the sun sets in the west. Anyone want to disagree? No. Cool. So we're formally now in agreement that the sun sets on the west. I'm going to build shit off of this observation, right? That's what an observation is. It's a statement about fact that you expect the other person to agree with and not dispute, and that you want formally agreed with because you plan to do something with it. I don't know what the other part of it, any non sequitur is. There's no non sequiturs around here. These are all sequiturs. You feel like you're missing something. I'm making air fried potatoes. Okay, what you're missing is oil or butter. I mean, it's something that disagrees with my preconception, and that is let's see if Carlos is going to use errant logic. An entertainer, not a debater. Yeah, you're pretty damn good. I mean, you're coming around here messing with me. It's not, I've dealt with you before when you were on the offensive. You're strong, you know. There's no inherent weakness in you. You're just not a trained professional like me. And you're not as old as I am. But I have no problem saying to people, this lady is an HP, because when you engage, even when you're wrong and you're trying to argue with me, I'm still pleased with your level of argumentation. You know? I wonder if you think Earth is flat and you just keep quiet about it because your peers disagree with you. I mean, let's say he did think it was flat. What would that tell you? You'd have to know why he thought it was flat to come to any conclusions about it. Yeah, I think it's flat. Why? Because I'm visualizing time in 4 dimensions, but the only way I can visualize it that way is to visualize 3 dimensions as flat and the 3rd dimension is time. Okay, cool. That's a good reason to think the Earth is flat. Or at least to visualize it as such. Because I've decided to define visualizing something as flat as the same thing as thinking it's flat, at least during the occupation of that time of visualization. Therefore, at least some of the time, I think the Earth is flat. Perfectly good reason to think the Earth is flat. So it doesn't matter what he thinks, it matters why he thinks it. You know, it's like this is a strategy that doesn't really have a name. It's not steel manning, it's not straw manning, but it's somewhere in that category of thing. You make a case for their case using different definition that affirms, but it's not what they want, right? No, I can prove the Earth is flat. That I think the Earth is flat, and that I'm right to do so. I can prove those things. And they're like, fantastic, you're on our team, right? And then you prove the Earth is flat, in abstract ways that acknowledge the Earth is round, right? There should be a name for that technique. I don't know if the Earth is round or not, but I am absolutely sure it's at least bumpy. I go up and down hills all the time. For people who say the Earth is flat, my answer is not flat enough. Good point, huh? It's so flat. Why do I keep having to walk upstairs? No, because I built the flatness above the ground. Is that what you're saying? Okay, well, that was a bad example. That was a bad example. Well, what about how come I have to walk back up the hill from the shed to the house? Huh? I didn't build that hill. I didn't build this house either, but that's not the point. No human built that hill. That proves the earth is not flat enough in some spots and too flat in others. Like the beach, it's too flat. The ocean, way too flat. When it's calm. When it's not calm, it's way too choppy. It's going to jostle the fuck out of you. It's called Tails I Win, Heads You Lose, making a claim on both possible outcomes. The Woodman, similar to straw, but harder, closer to steel. Yeah, Carlos Baber's got it right. But Jeremiah Fix, that's the ultimate takeaway from it. You're correct as well. But it's a little more subtle than that, It's saying you get to win, but only on my terms. And winning on my terms ultimately means losing on your terms. Of course, somebody would correctly say to me in response to that whole line of reasoning, you're just playing a preposition game, Eric. You think of the world as flat when you visualize it as such. You don't think that the world is flat. So, and then I'd be stuck with my pants down, right? Why? I don't play games, You play games, you can get stuck with your pants down. Of course, I will tell you this. I know it's happened, but I cannot even remember. I remember one time Evelyn, and that was more of a helpful insight as to where I was heading in the wrong direction on something, and I needed more clarification on than it was a catching with my pants down. But I cannot recall instances where people catch me with my pants down like that. I can think of, not specific to the moment, but I know there have been multiple instances where I think later on, oh my God, I got so lucky that they didn't catch me with my pants down. But it's about something like that, right? And nobody ever catches that for some reason. Like, you're just playing a game with prepositions, Eric, is the correct response to that. Nobody ever catches that kind of shit. It's basically an equivocation fallacy. Is that the dead mouse? Wishful thinking. That's not a dead mouse. It's something other than a dead mouse. It's also not a living mouse. So, better than the worst case scenario. Oh, Eric. Once again, Eric has done this. There's no more room in this trash can, dummy. You need to take the trash out and put in a different trash bag. Am I going to do so? No. There, see? I could fit another piece of trash. The craziest thing of all is the trash can in which to put the trash is right here. Except it looks like it's full. Now that I'm looking at it, I see this strap sticking out here suggested. Oh no, it's got room for another bag. So I really don't have any excuse at all for not taking the trash out at this point. Accepting my usual excuse, which is I'm a bad mamma jamma. So this is the problem, Jeremiah Fix. You ask a very important question in this instance, and I appreciate you asking it. There are significantly more mice brought into the house and presumably killed and left somewhere than I find. Like, at least twice as many get in here, never leave as far as I can tell, and are never found. Where are they hiding those dead mice? I don't know. Okay, what do you want? You want to go in the room with mommy? You want more food on your plate? There's food in here. Okay, Nederlander. You're so needy. Cat's as needy as blind orphans right after the porridge factory. So I don't know where they are. You know, I was frankly expecting to find some under the chairs when I vacuumed. I didn't find any under the chairs. One time I found one back between the fridge and there's a little space back in there. It had crawled back in and died. But I don't know where they are. You know, it's like, and I just did a big clean. They're basically all downstairs. They didn't do a full vacuum clean upstairs. They could be up there, the mice, but maybe some of them get carried back outside. I'm not sure. Maybe some of them somehow get outside, like if the door's open. But I don't know. We've got the case of the missing mouse corpses. And you know, like Rachel and I, every once in a while we'll smell a bad smell, like over where we're sitting. I'm not sure what it is. Probably the trash can next to us, or um, maybe one of the cats farted or something. And we'll go, oh, okay, there's got to be something dead here. Because we got it in our head that there's probably dead mice everywhere. But there's nothing dead around our chairs at all. And when we do occasionally smell that smell, it's probably just the trash can next to us needs to be changed out, you know. The bag needs to be carried out. So I don't know where the dead mice are. When trouble ultimately makes the kill, he seems to leave half a carcass somewhere where I can obviously find it. But if Capito's got the mouse inside, she likes to play let it go and find its hiding space and then wait for it to try to come out again and jump on it, etc. Trouble's not that patient. He wants to have it and then he'll just kill it. And then it's like rip it in half. So, you know, most of the ones, though, because he's not as good a hunter as Capillo, Capillo is currently with the mouse somewhere in the house, probably. I don't know. I don't see her around here. And, you know, I've asked her to please not bring her serial killer victims home, but she continues to ignore me. Cats, they're serial killers. Yeah, Trevor likes to share. He like eats the head off of it or something and just leaves the body. I think he likes to say, "Hey, I did my job." Capilla, she doesn't think it's her job per se. I mean, she may, but she really loves her job, right? Trouble is just like, it's fun to pounce on it, then I just kill it. Because that's my job. I'm not here to fuck around. But Capilla is definitely there to fuck around. Accordingly, she's also got this very gentle cat mouth. She can carry a mouse in unharmed in her mouth so she can let it go and it just runs at full speed. Gentle cat mouth. That's one of my Indian names. They called me that because they said my voice was like listening to the tender meows of a gentle cat mouth. Well, Capillo is out here, so I guess. Well, are you going in or not, Capillo? I guess she's not with the mouse. She must have lost it and therefore I lost interest in it. So, we have another mouse in the house. Eventually the cats will get it if it lives that long. If she didn't injure it already enough. Just seeing if they caught on to it yet. Who caught on to what? It's a good point, Boba Fett, about setting suns. If they're setting, what are they setting? If not the table, then what? If the sun is sitting rather than setting, then why doesn't it have legs? These are the questions that have confused mankind for all of human history. The hypothetical man. Well, when I look at the earth, I just see with my intuition round. I just feel it. The Great Red Takeover, the commies are coming back, even though they always have failed. Well, a lot of people are enamored of big government. Small thinkers love big government because they don't understand beyond the immediate scope of the thing they're caring about, right? It's like, these people are homeless and suffering. We need to do something. Let's spend money on giving them homes. That's not going to work because you're not factoring in human psychology and a bunch of other things. And, you're just thinking so small picture that you're just doomed to just create havoc rather than solve any kinds of problems. Like building all those projects supposedly to improve the lives of poor communities didn't work at all. It made horrible communities of poor people dependent on government assistance and owning nothing and accordingly caring little for anything. I've seen the projects in Birmingham, Alabama. crazy, just like on TV. You really want to help people and you're the government, just give them money. Can't do anything else. Just cut them a check. Well, I mean, the thing is, any other means of wealth redistribution is actually ultimately incentivizing poverty in a variety of ways. So-called job training programs and stuff. Um, the reality is, most jobs need either no training or way more training slash natural talent than you're going to get in a job training program for people who don't have any jobs, right? So these ideas sound good. What they add is they make sure that a good chunk of the money that's trying to be redistributed goes to bureaucracy instead of to actual redistribution. You're always best off just cutting people a check. No, no fine print, no stipulations, just cut them a check. Gardening, Carlos Paiva. Plumbing, you go to a trade school for plumbing. If the government wants to fund people's education at trade schools because there's a need for more plumbers, great. Unfortunately, well, the thing is this, Carlos Paiva, you end up with idiotic policies like, hey, let's just pay for everybody to go to trade school and train them to be plumbers and welders and stuff like that. Those are good, high-paying jobs. They are, because there's not a glut of those things, right? There's not a glut of people with those kind of certifications. If there is a glut of such people, then if they're going to remain in such a high-paying job, then those people will not be admitted into the job force despite their qualifications. If they are en masse admitted into the job force because of their qualifications, then the pay will not stay that high. Or, once again, you will have some people who simply cannot find work, a significant majority of them. That's how it will work, right? But government's not responsive enough to train people to shifting demands, and the jobs that are in highest demand usually require something other than just a mean level of talent and skill and intelligence and stuff like that, right? Also, like, let's say I were to take advantage of one of these programs and get trained to be a plumber. I'd be a terrible plumber. Well, sure, Carlos Paiva, many more basic jobs are in high demand now. So then you don't need training for those basic jobs. And then why don't you get one of those jobs right now? I mean, education is a totally separate topic than social programs. It's not the same thing. You're comparing apples and oranges. I need some training. What are you going to train me in? Plumbing? How to be a plumber? Well, the truth is, for most of those fix-it kind of things, there's declining demand because of YouTube. I fixed my own dryer. I bought the requisite high temperature fuses that I needed. I watched the video. I replaced them myself. It cost me $20 in parts plus $20 for an electricity tester thing. you know, rather than replacing a fucking dryer or hiring somebody to fix it. Lots of increasingly people are doing that kind of thing, right? So there's that kind of work is in a lot of ways there's less instances of it. There are probably more instances like contractor install kind of stuff, but those things are always contingent on housing booms. And of course, as with any other labor supply, if you create a glut of supply in that sector, you're not going to do anybody in that sector any favors. You artificially create a glut in supply. If you want to help people who basically the problem is they need more money, then give them money. If that's how you want, if you want to redistribute wealth, then do it like that and don't make it contingent on means. So in other words, if you're going to give people money, give everybody the same amount of money whenever you give it, and don't means test it. Don't be like poor people get more, rich people get less, or whatever, because that's going to just incentivize poverty again. So these are the golden laws to social programs. If you want an effective social program, there are certain things you absolutely must avoid. Number one of these things is means testing. Any means tested social program necessary is subject to fraud, catastrophic bureaucratic fuck ups, extensive cost overlays that render half of the resources devoted to the thing just burned into smoke, etc. Get rid of all means testing. Then you can potentially have an effective social program. Number two, no in-kind benefits. Can only be cash. Anything other than cash that is not linked to means will not be an effective social program. You can't give money to everyone without eroding buying power by printing more money. You can by redistributing tax revenue. In other words, what I'm saying is every bit of tax revenue that comes in that's currently redistributed to programs like Medicare, Social Security. Social Security is in a separate fund. I don't really want to get into Social Security. I shouldn't have mentioned that one. Forget Social Security. Medicare, food stamps, HUD, housing and urban development, all that kind of stuff, right? All of that money should be taken away from all of those bureaucratically structured efforts, simply put into a big pile, define a segment of the population eligible to receive it on a neutral ground, like age. Everyone from 18 through 35 gets this. Nobody older than that. That would be a fair way to do it, right? Because the argument would be young people are less far along, need the help, and since we're not including Social Security in this, old people have Social Security. So that'd be the argument, right? So then do that. Do that and let those individuals have ownership of the resources that are being redistributed to them rather than trying to make them subject to the resources. And, inform people, look, you're getting these free resources from this age to this age. It's plausible potentially to live off this if you live cheaply. But remember, it's going to run out at this age. And be smart. Invest, man. Get a job too. Don't try to just live off this, right? Well, unfortunately, Carlos Paiva, we have to acknowledge that some people will not successfully self-sustain, right? And some people end up potentially homeless. Now, in America, the solution to that is we need to centralize homeless services and make it, in fact, not allowed for municipalities. This would obviously be federal overreach, but sorry, but it would be ideal if we make it so that municipalities were not allowed to build to try to solve homelessness at the municipal level. That they had to direct any such funds to the federal centralized project, and that would have to be the best solution for that. In that place, you can give in-kind benefits instead of cash, etc., because then you've got it isolated from the system, right? You have to go to that geographic location and stay there to receive those services. Some of those services can be things like job training programs, etc., right? But then they're they're linked to your actual homelessness, and you want to get away from homeless town. You don't want to stay there forever. You're incentivized to get out. Well, like I said, Carlos Paiva, it's true that um, that we can't provide a safety net for absolutely everybody, and that it doesn't matter how much money we gave everybody. Right? There are some people I could give them $10,000 a month, and they could have like they were currently living in like a $1,500 a month apartment and surviving on 2 grand a month. I say, here's an additional 10 grand a month, and they would do nothing but blow through it every single month, right? So there's nothing you can do to solve that problem except to say, here's our bottom level safety net. It's located only in one location physically. You have to go there to get it. And then that way, that eliminates all of the problems that normally go along with in-kind benefits. It doesn't impact regular markets. It it doesn't infantilize because it's saying, I'm not going to solve your problems for you on your terms. If you need help, it's available here and here only. And if you need help and refuse to acknowledge that, in other words, insist on camping on public sidewalks, well, since there's a federal homeless shelters provided, there's a place for the municipality to send you. They can arrest you, put you on a train and say, go to homeless town. But you don't even need to have that kind of authoritarian edge to it. You just say, the cops may now tell people who are camped on sidewalk, you may not camp on sidewalk because there's a law against vagrancy slash camping in public spaces, and it will meet the conditions of the Supreme Court ruling, which states you can only do that if you have some place for them to go. Well, that someplace is homeless town. Is it ideal, this whole solution of mine, to both make redistribution efforts, namely safety net efforts, as robust as possible, okay, and to make last resort safety net as isolated from the system as possible. In those regards, it's meeting its goals perfectly, right? Does that mean that it's the most like FI respecting solution? No. I mean, there are plenty of people who want to not have a permanent home, travel around. There's nothing wrong with that. Especially like maybe have an RV or something like that, or some kind of a truck with a camper on it, things like that. And you certainly don't want those people to be harassed. But at the same time, you can't have people setting up homeless communities on public property and still call it public property. It no longer belongs to the public. I can't access it as a member of the public. I can't walk down that sidewalk because there are literally tents on it, you know? It's no longer public property. Demographics, how does that factor into my proposition? Um, I don't understand what the question is. Like, what I, I mean, the question is about a demographic of people called homeless people. It's additionally about a demographic of people called um, unable to sustain themselves financially. Like, I'm not sure what your question is. In the example I gave where I posited converting existing social programs into some kind of a UBI, I positioned it as being available up to a certain age, but not beyond, with the following rationale. But the real rationale being behind it being you're going to have to limit the amount of eligible people, or they're not going to get a big enough check for it to make a big difference. If you want to give people a good head start in life, um, give them a sizable check every month from age 18 to 25 even, or maybe 30, and say, look, we are trusting you with the nation's wealth, that you will make yourself more wealthy. You will make yourself independently wealthy. You will use this money to create for yourself a life where you need to work as little as possible and you can do what you want as much as possible. Be smart. Look at all these people we have as examples among your peers. Look at them, how they're doing things. Don't be one of the dumb ones who ends up at 30 with nothing. Don't be dumb. You gotta really hammer that shit in, right? You could even you could even put in uh, a an easing away of certain stipulations. Like, the government could stipulate for the first 2 years they must uh, invest yeah amount in qualified investments, and that sort of thing. That would be a much better kind of stipulation than the kind of stipulations that normally come with social programs. That's a good plan, right? Then you create a generation of independent people as best you can. And you empower a generation of young people who are at the height of their ideational vigor and wanting to get projects done and stuff to just put money into their projects and hopefully they work. Granted, it's not always going to work, but in the process of putting money into their authentic projects, they can make them into real projects and now they have real resources direct towards them. They will make connections, network, etc., and get involved in a real kind of whatever they're dealing with. A much better plan than the current mishmash of bullshit we've got. Like disability. Talk about a fraud magnet. It's like, hey, we've created this device to attract disabled people. Oh, wait, we configured it wrong. It only attracts people who want free money. I know what we need to do. We need to add more layers of bureaucracy to make it more difficult for somebody to prove to us that they qualify for this free money. What does that mean? They need a thicker file. They need more doctors to have chimed in on the subject. Once it gets a thick enough file, they'll approve your disability. We were told this. Don't worry, don't worry. You're not getting approved this time, but you can appeal it. Like there's a whole community of people who think they're doing a wonderful thing by helping people get on disability, regardless of whether they actually need it or they think everybody deserves it, because they're like, that's plain disabled. How hard do I feel so bad for you? You mean you can't hear out of one of your ears? Okay, give this person thousands of dollars. Well, I know it doesn't qualify technically as a disability that can't make you work. But look, if you get a thick enough file together, it will qualify. Because that's how bureaucracy works. It tries to TE away intuition. So yeah, fuck disability. Disabled people are disabled. They can't work. Well, they can, cart shit back and forth for me on that motorized wheelchair. Even Stephen Hawking could do that for me. Stephen Hawking could attach a scooper on his wheelchair just with his cheek, move wood over there, push a button, have it dump it over there. Yeah. It's like even that guy who's as disabled as anybody can possibly be did lots of work, wrote best-selling book, etc. So how can you be too disabled to work? Maybe if you're a quadriplegic. But like I said, like even Stephen Hawking was able to. It might not be fair to expect them to work. I can see that. It's not fair to expect somebody like that to do that kind of work. You'd be obviously doing a terrible job with your HR department if you picked Stephen Hawking. You hired him to carry wood for you. You're not really a good HR person. You should probably not be in charge of hirings. But the point is, that lazy fuck could carry wood if I wanted them to. We're governed by BDSM subs. So that corruption benefits the citizens? Okay, well, do you think the state should give young people money as part of their education? I mean, I would say this. Um, Rather than having teachers and stuff like that, kids should be able to earn money by passing tests that prove they've learned things. If the government wants to spend money on schooling, do it that way. You know, say if you can pass this test and make all those tests be in person, no virtual testing, then you'll earn this much money. Because you will prove that you've successfully taught yourself all of this without costing a taxpayer anything. So, here you earn $2,500 for teaching this to yourself, or subletting out, like subcontracting out the job to a teacher or whatever. Be for everything. I mean, look, I'm not opposed to grammar school through third, fourth grade, fifth grade, maybe. I don't think fifth grade is really necessary, but third, fourth grade, make sure kids can read, write, arithmetic, that kind of shit, basic stuff. And after that, I mean, but if you wanted to really maximize it, you simply say, okay, little kids, when you've mastered all of your arithmetic and can pass this arithmetic test, you can earn $250. And then, the amounts go up as they learn more complicated shit, right? And they get a little older. It could even be put into a trust for them and have that trust time locked so it's not available till they're 40 years old. It would save the taxpayer a lot of money, municipal taxpayers, because that money is currently being wasted on a horribly inefficient, wicked, and disastrous failure of an education system. Really good, huh, Carlos Paiva? It would be so much better than the way it's doing things now. That way, kids would actually have ownership of what they're doing. This is the biggest problem in education, right? Children don't do anything real. They're always doing practice shit. The only place they do anything real in school is in sports, which is zero sum. Well, yeah, I'm not saying, Jeremiah Picks, this is a good way to incentivize kids to learn. I'm saying this is a good way to pay for learning actually done rather than for time wasted. Because in the status quo, you're saying, hey, Eric, look, kids aren't motivated to learn by money. They're motivated by video games and stuff. Right. Well, they're also not motivated to learn by being forced to go to a room where they have to sit next to some kid who's mean to them and do a bunch of shit that's totally irrelevant to them for no good reasons from a succession of authority figures who basically enslave them and then try to make demands on their free time after they're not even at school with all this ridiculous homework. It's appalling. Is that a good way to give them more dopamine than my reward system? It's not a reward system. It's a way society can efficiently pay for education actually accomplished rather than paying for babysitting in which tiny bits of education are sometimes accomplished. You're trying to think of the psychology of the children. I'm thinking about how society should pay for education instead of paying for a bunch of wasted time. You know what's highly motivational? Force children to get up early and be slaves for 6 hours a day with instructions on how to be slaves later when they get home. Well, I mean, the thing is, there is no comparable system for adults to the system we purportedly provide to children for the purpose of teaching them to get along, to obey, to fit in, or whatever. We don't ask any other segment of our society to get along, obey, fit in without affording them first the choice about what they're doing, right? I can't expect you to fit in, obey, get along when I'm forcing you to go jogging and you don't want to go jogging and you didn't consent to go jogging, right? So that's the big problem with this whole notion is that in the rest of society, in the rest of life, nothing operates like school. Everybody has to have each other's consent before things happen. we don't have that kind of need to obey in society. In fact, we have strong legislation precluding that from occurring. You can quit whenever you want. Nobody is a slave. And you can apply for as many jobs as you want. You can accept offers or decline them as you see fit. You know, you don't have to do work that you hate if you can find work that you hate less for the same amount of money. So, but look, the education system wasn't designed. It organically grew during agrarian society in America. That's where the classroom schoolhouse thing came from. That's why we have the hours we have, right? That's why school starts at 8 in the morning and ends at 2 or 3 in the afternoon, is because the farmers needed their children home before school and after school to deal with the farm animals. That's why there's a summer vacation, because they needed them working all summer in the fields. So the thing is, that's where the system began. Then, as communities grew, they started segregating children by age. They said, we no longer can have a one-room schoolhouse with kindergarten through 12th grade taught by one teacher. It's ridiculous. We need to have the little kids with one teacher, the big kids with one teacher, and then gradually separated into the grades, right? As the population demands required. It was not designed by anybody. As far as the curricula, well, it's the curricula that originally were in place were the curricula of academics, things like Latin, philosophy, um, logic, mathematics, grammar. They didn't teach things like writing and poetry and a bunch of other garbage like that, right? Because they weren't considered things you learn, they were considered like hobbies. The thing is, the point is, no, people think that because stuff ended up a certain way, like we ended up with youth prison camp, that therefore industrialists wanted to train mindless drone bees or something, and that's why it turned out the way it did. Bullshit. It's First of all, every classroom is defined fundamentally by the teacher in charge of that classroom. Never forget that. Whether or not your kid has a great fourth grade year, learns a fair amount of stuff, a terrible fourth grade year, learns nothing, has everything to do with the teacher and nothing to do with anything else. Good for them. Well, the thing is, tech has given the young an advantage, which helps subvert a lot of this shit. But the old people are fighting back super hard. Like Jeffrey's school precluding him from working with any teachers outside of the school. I mean, how fucking appalling is that? Because they know they don't teach for shit. And if some other teacher gets included in this process, that it's going to be obvious to the parents and the student that they've got terrible instruction at poly. The point is, isn't the goal for the student to learn shit? And doesn't the student have ownership over their own education? If I don't feel as a student that you're doing a good enough job teaching me this subject, and I want to get extra help from somebody else, what possible fucking business is it of yours? I mean, well, the way it plays out is everybody just has tutors and stuff, and no, and is just silent about it. Nobody mentions it. If asked, deny, I guess. Yeah, it's not a boarding school. They just the teachers put like these big things like you may not. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Does it work? No, it doesn't work at all. But it makes everybody lie all the time. They're trying to prevent people from cheating, like having a tutor write the paper or something. It never happened with Jeffrey and Chloe and me. They always write it. Sometimes I'll be like, okay, it should sound like this, blah 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 blah, blah. And then they try to write something like that, and then I look at it and I go, okay, this is garbage. Fix this, fix that, and then maybe I correct some, edit, do a little grammar correction or whatever, or just tighten things up. But if that comprises cheating, then everybody has to cheat to get a decent grade on anything in this fucking school. Because I'm about as good a writer as can possibly be. And if I'm putting more effort into polishing something, if I polish the shit out of it and make it like perfect and he gets anything less than 100%, then the teacher basically saying, you have to get a professional writer to write your paper for you or you won't get an A. I mean, again, it depends on the individual teacher, Jeremiah thinks. Some teachers are very highly politicized. They have a specific agenda and they want the student to repeat back that agenda. Others have a specific aesthetic. They want writing of a certain kind, even though it's bad, because like they're an ENFP or something, they think more words are better. Still others are, or what I would consider proper academics. They're encouraging actual discourse about a subject. Still others are what you'd call flashpoint avoidant, right? So they just stay far away from any potential controversial topics. What do you want, Trouble? Well, I mean, Jeremiah picks, there are certain individual teachers, no doubt, who want to push that narrative. Sure, I've seen some leftist stuff, but equally offensive is an English teacher who wants their kids to write analytical papers about literature in ways that are bad, not they're NI countervaluing, like that reject clarity and concision in favor of wordiness. That's just as offensive. I'm sure there are teachers who also, like me, who go and say, look, this so called colonization, atrocity, whatever. Yeah, I get it. Those people from Europe were not very civilized. And the people that they exterminated were just a bunch of savages, right? Currently, we're so civilized, we would not exterminate the savages like that. But it's important to remember it is foolhardy of us to romanticize savagery. The reason they got wiped out is because they were still living in the fucking Stone Ages like a bunch of animals. That doesn't make it okay the way the colonizers treated those people, but it does make it inevitable given that those colonizing peoples were not very civilized themselves yet. So, is it bad that they murdered all those people and stuff? Yes. Is it because their savage ways were good? No. They were not good or better than the colonizers. They had slaves. They had interscene warfare. Different tribes had various barbaric practices that no decent thinking human being would respect or affirm. Did that make them justifiably a target of, concentrated campaigns of violence and rejection? No. But it does make our current attempt to impose modern mores on the past and then somehow translate those into contemporaneously relevant critiques, both insane and misguided. So knock it the fuck off. It's wrong to murder is not a feeling, Jeremiah Fix. Oh, God. Nobody could possibly argue it's wrong to murder. I mean, I don't even know how you could even... What emotion would that be? Disapproval? It's a universal statement intended as a moral imperative to apply to every individual person, right? Namely, you cannot commit murder without falling into a state of moral impermissibility. And in no way, shape, or form does that have anything at all to do with feelings. If you were to argue why it's morally impermissible, you could try to argue that murder causes negative feelings, but that's not a good reason to think that it's bad, right? You have to have good reasons to think things are wrong. So, for example, by virtue of ownership, we enjoy a reality in which our rights can be clearly defined. And if we wish to sustain our capacity to exercise our own rights, we must respect those of others. Don't worry, these are negative rights. They're not compelling you to do anything, compelling you not to do things. So, yes, murder is universally wrong. And yes, murder causes bad feelings. But feelings are irrelevant to why murder is universally wrong. Certainly, one's position on murder, I'm in favor, I'm opposed, is not a feeling. People may assert a position based on their feelings about something unrelated to the subject, but the subject can't be adjudicated with your feelings. Because fortunately, the world works like this. You've mostly got things that can only be adjudicated without your feelings, or things that can only be adjudicated with your feelings. Sometimes you have things that require both. But for deliberative processes, it's got neatly halved realms, you know. Your subjective interests are one thing, they don't universalize at all. Your logic is another thing, it's about universal communicative stuff, right? So they're beautifully carved out nation states of independent purpose. Negative feelings are always irrelevant to any universal moral questions because universal moral questions are negative necessarily. Feelings are always relevant to positive moral indications in that since there are infinite positive things you might do, which ones you like doing more, is probably going to be the determinant factor in which ones you do. But as per the rule I stated, positive moral implications don't universalize. So essentially, the question of sort of normative claims like this is wrong, this is right, this is morally permissible, this is morally impermissible, etc. Those never involve feelings. Whereas you should do this, it would be morally advisable for you to do this. That's always involves feelings. Can never be articulated objectively unless it's contractually obtained positive right. Like, I paid you, you need to do the service. I've gone over this before, Jeremiah. But it's important stuff. It bears repeating. It's the stuff that if people understood, everything would be simple and clear. But people don't want to understand because they don't want to be constrained by correctness, because they feel very strongly, for reasons they do not understand, an attachment to a given position that they've, for reasons I cannot understand, linked to their identity. And it's like, I guess subjectivity just makes it very difficult to see the lines where objectivity and subjectivity ought to be applied, whereas objectivity makes it impossible not to see where those lines are drawn. If you're as fully objective as I am. The thing is, like, all these questions of moral stuff, they have very straightforward answers and easily, you don't have to have any faith in Eric. You don't have to trust his intuitive leaps. Everything I'm saying is, it's not just, I didn't make all this shit up or whatever. It's all out there in the literature, as they say. But I do have a little tweaks on it to make it correct. I had to fix a couple of things. Like most people with a correct understanding of rights and morality incorrectly think lying is immoral. It's a bad idea, but it's not immoral necessarily. Sometimes it is, but it's very much ill-advised, however. Because lying costs you credibility, and that's in a practical sense, that's a more serious cost than moral liability. Let me see what's going on here in the chat-a-roo. I hear you. I have a hunch that a number of people don't know how to argue for their feelings. Example from I read that one. Assuming history is accurate in all accounts is no good. Well, correct, but the most important thing isn't the specifics of what happened, it's how to frame it, right? Because then, well, they did, and that was bad. But the reason the Indians were defenseless is because they were savages. And savagery is going to get crushed by civilization every time. And it should get crushed by civilization every time. And now we're more civilized, so we'd crush it in a more civilized fashion, hopefully. But you can't go back in time and redo things. Right, but the thing is, those feelings, Jeremiah, like feeling mad at this make believe group, this boogeyman you created that doesn't exist. In other words, you're feeling righteous indignation on the behalf of the people who were wronged, but there's no place to direct those feelings. The people who wronged those people are long dead. The people who were wronged are long dead. And trying to pretend as though their descendants are the same people is insane. If Christmas to me is about the sacrificial act of God, and I was prone to value theoretical mourning, what? Do you think people slumped over the piano crying, singing a song dedicated to Jesus would put you in the holiday spirit? Um, Probably not. If the lie is combating what I think is a dishonest query, then it becomes moot. I mean, it becomes a wash in terms of morality. No, it's not like that. That's not why lies aren't immoral. Lies aren't immoral because you have no reasonable expectation of the truth. You're not entitled to it. It's like you're entitled to your bodily integrity, right? Somebody, because you own your body. You don't own what other people say to you. Now, if it's a call to action, like in other words, if I have an obstructed view, I've got a box in front of my face, and I say to the person next to me, is it clear? Am I safe to pass? To walk out and across the street now? And the person sees a car coming and they go, yeah, step out right now because they want you to die, and you do. They're guilty of murder. That's a call to action. It's a special kind of speech, okay? Um, but for regular lies, like if I tell you just a made up story, like, hey, I saw Sylvester Stallone in town today. The reason No, I said explicitly here, Lamb, the people who killed your ancestors were not civilized compared to our civilization today. They were just more civilized than the people they crushed. The point is, it is no Indian alive today, here, Lamb, you or any other Cherokee or Sioux or Seminole or whatever, is choosing to live in the Indian way. They don't live in teepees and chase buffaloes around. They live in houses and drive trucks and have casinos and live regular lives, except they get special privileges because idiots think that because they feel sad about what happened before because it was bad, that we can do something about it now, hundreds of years later. It's ridiculous. Or that somehow here, Lamb, I should still treat you as an Indian and you should treat me as a white man. We were both fucking born in the 20th century, for God's sake. You know? It's like, you're no more an Indian than I am a white man. You're Harold Lamb, I'm Eric, right? The thing is, if either of us have any investment to some ancestral identity, we're just ramming bullshit down our own throats. I don't have any fucking ancestral identity. I'm not those colonists. I'm not German because I came from Germany. I'm I'm a Californian, an American. I was born in Los Angeles, Panorama City, you know. I'm a regular guy like you. I'm not some special class of meow. I refuse all your group labels. I don't want any of them. Except I'll take this one. I'll take heterosexual. And the reason I believe in that label is because I would never want my partner. I think it accurately applies to me for one thing. But besides that, I would never want my partner to think that I need something sexually that she can't provide, right? I think it's worthwhile to commit to a sexuality accordingly. No, I'm not saying they deserve to be killed. I'm saying it was absolutely wicked the way the white people treated the Indians. But for the Indians who came through on the other side, they're much happier living in houses with electricities, watching TV. You know, it's like you're happier here watching this live stream than you would be in a teepee hero lamp. And the thing is, me too. And you know what? It's true for both of us. And it's not true because either of us is Indian or either of us is white people. It's because civilization is better than savagery. I mean, it's like, purportedly, I'm German, right? Do I feel offended when people say, those fucking Germans, World War I, World War II, where the fuck did they get off? I'm like, I know. What's the deal with those fucks? If people were like, immigrants who came to Pennsylvania and settled there as Mennonites, you know, they talk about my dad's family, right? They shouldn't have gone there because prior to that, some Indians lived there. I'd be like, well, I don't know. It's maybe I'd have to know more details, but yeah, if they seized Indian land and didn't compensate them, then that would be theft. Unfortunately, the Indians didn't seem to really get the concept of ownership. So it's hard to buy land from people who don't claim to own it. Pennsylvania, it would be that stage. Later on, the Indians started getting more sophisticated. And in fact, they won a critical Supreme Court case that then President Jackson horribly ignored in one of the greatest travesties in American political history, resulting in the Trail of Tears. The travesty was not that the Trail of Tears happened, although that was obviously appalling. The travesty was that the President of the United States ignored the Supreme Court's direct order on this matter and did what the fuck he wanted. Even saying the Supreme Court wants to enforce its ruling, they can tell their army to come stop me. How fucked up is that? Talk about an abuse of the executive branch powers. Talk about the abuse of commander in chief. Talk about treason, high treason. You should have been hung from the highest tree for that shit. You can't just ignore the Supreme Court ruling and claim to be upholding your oath to respect the Constitution. That fucking Andrew Jackson. He's on a $20 bill. They should put on his face treason as fuck on future printings of the $20 bill. Then I'll accept that. From now on, I'm not paying with any $20 bills. I'm just going to get all tens. Because I don't like Andrew Jackson. He was the Donald Trump of his day. But he did much more damage than Donald Trump ever did. Donald Trump did very little damage ultimately, which is the most impressive thing a president can do. Seems a very difficult thing for a president to do these days. It's like, take the Hippocratic Oath, presidents. Foremost, do no harm. Yeah, Andrew Jackson was a dick. He was a dick, and uh, He was his generation's Benedict Arnold, in my opinion. No, I'm not saying they were ignorant savages. I'm saying they hadn't mastered agriculture and therefore still had limited population scopes and also difficulty difficulty with claiming land ownership because they were moving around following buffaloes around and stuff. The thing is, you might point to the Mayans who did successfully have a thriving culture with agriculture and everything, but that had fallen apart before the conquistadors got there. It took a tiny amount of conquistadors to conquer all of South America. It was ridiculous. Talk about not being good at fighting for yourself. Anyway, the point is, yes, in many ways, the white people were just as savage, brutal, uncivilized as the Indians. But the key difference is the colonists had farming and stable communities that didn't move around. They had well built structures and other technological advantages. Those technological advantages are called civilization. Starts with agriculture. That's the core of every civilized society is a stable, reliable, repeatable food production system. If you got such abundant natural resources that you can just follow around the animals and be and feed your population fine because there's so many game animals and stuff, you're never going to develop that kind of civilization. And accordingly, you're going to be vulnerable to um, civilizing. Unfortunately, in America's history, in the most brutal and unacceptable way imaginable, but still, I think we should all agree that it's better to have the advantages of a society that has agriculture than to have the advantages um, of a nomadic culture. A nomadic culture may be closer to nature, be free of a lot of modern life stresses, but it's got its own kinds of stresses. You know, it's like when you got old as an Indian, they just left you for the wolves to eat. What do you want, Trouble? What do you want? You want me to watch you eat? You want to go outside? Okay, go outside. Please. So yeah, look. When I talk the way I do about Indians and savages and stuff like that, my point is that regardless of what happened back then, the number one lesson for us all should be don't romanticize savagery. It's wrong to romanticize the savagery of the white people who came over and thought they were doing everybody a favor by forcing them to be Christians. It's like, oh, Jesus really appreciates this? I'm pretty sure he doesn't. Anyway, regardless, uh, yeah, those people were idiots, obviously. He's kind of like, oh my God, look at all these birds. Let's shoot them all. Because, fuck, I have so many things to shoot at. Like, that shit is just insane, right? But at the same time, I don't think there's a single Native American in the country who, worthy to follow the following experiment, sell their truck, sell their house, live on the reservation in the old ways, make sure there's sufficient amount of game since almost nobody else is hunting and I'm sure it'd be fine for like one family, and live that way. They'd be back in their house in a week tops. Who wouldn't be? Who wouldn't? It's like, how cold is it outside right now? It says it's 41, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's actually it's not that cold tonight. Probably accurate-ish. What it says now is 43, but it says in 1 hour it will be 29 degrees. It's going to go from 43 to 29 in 1 hour. You've got to be kidding me. See, even no, this thing says 29 at the low, right? If you look at the hourly, there's no 29. It goes from 43 to 35, then to 36, then to 47. That's now 7 a.m., 8 a.m., 9 a.m. This Microsoft weather thing, I keep using it and it just continually disappoints me. I don't even know why I continue to use it. It never seems to know what it's talking about. Now, let's forecast these clouds, see what kind of cloud cover we're expected to get in the coming days. It's like we got a high pressure system or a low pressure system right over us. But it does show it collapsing potentially going into Sunday afternoon. It still seems it's projecting the clouds going like all around us, but not actually hitting us. So I don't know. I didn't say I wasn't gonna keep streaming. I was looking at the weather. I'm talking about it being cold for some reason. Oh, right. I know why. Because wouldn't you rather be in a nice warm house with central heating that keeps the temperature a steady 68 degrees than be sleeping on the ground outside with a fire in the middle of your hut? I would. I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I don't mind being dirty. Like, it's kind of like swimming in my own filth, being like oily and gross erickiness. But I don't like being dirty, like having dirt on me. And especially, I don't like being dusty. Being dusty is the worst state of dirtiness. I immediately feel the need to wash off my whatever. Well, just think about it. If you were an Indian, how dusty you'd be all the time. You can't take a shower except by going to the river and going swimming. Oh, that wouldn't be warm. There's not going to be a warm shower. You're going to get up this morning, it's 43 degrees right now. You get up with the sun at 7 a.m. and you go take a shower in 50-degree water at the local river. I mean, doesn't that sound miserable? Well, and you have the soap you have is made out of animal lard and fire ash. You smell like that porcupine we killed the other day, plus a campfire. That's because I used soap. I should introduce a line of Native American soaps: porcupine lard and wood ash, wolverine lard and wood ash, buffalo lard and wood ash. Oh, this smells kind of like rancid animal fat. It does get the dirt off, I guess. Oh well, if this is how the Native Americans did it, then it must be good. After all, that's how Dr. Lionel Sprinting Wolf Kazaquo became the life guru that he is. I really appreciate Cameron's enthusiastic, positive regard to that video and suggestion that I re-upload it, that I download it. I should cut it. This is my suggestion to myself, is that it needs to be cut by about a minute, but re-upload it, give it a second chance at life, you know, because it just languishes in obscurity. That's how I like to languish. I languish in obscurity. Don't make me languish out in front of everyone. I wanna languish in obscurity. Don't make me languish out in public, son. Yeah, sure, some natives lived entirely different lives than others. But, you know, to the extent that there are commonalities, the commonality is expressed in a positive way as they had a much closer relationship with nature. They didn't damage the environment as much. They lived a more, what's the word? Sylvan kind of life. That's how it's best framed. As it's worst framed, whereas it's most neutrally framed, it's like these population of people inherently lived lives of greater deprivation than the Europeans, who had structured lifestyles built around stable farming. And so accordingly, we're less subject to vagaries in the weather. We're less subject to changes in animal populations, etc. Yes, some Indians grew some things like corn, but even then it was like, let's plant a field, leave, come back later in the year and hope it's done. They didn't like tend to it, you know. So so the thing is, even in the most FE-friendly light possible, it's kind of impossible not to acknowledge that the life of a native included more deprivation than the life of the colonists, at least after an initial state change period of volatility. Like the very initial colonies, like Jamestown, just disappeared, didn't take, whatever. But that wasn't a falsification of concept. It was circumstances preventing it. Fundamentally, the concept of stable communities built around stable productions of mostly agricultural products that are like vegetables and stuff, but also livestock rather than chasing the animals around. Yeah, there's plenty of animals around. It makes more sense to chase them around rather than try to keep livestock, right? But anyway, it's a fundamentally better system. It empowers individuals more. It creates wealth. It, it's predicated on the notion of ownership. So naturally, it supplanted inferior ways of going about stuff. The respective moral shades of the various parties, it really isn't relevant in any contemporary discourse about it. Like, yeah, the white people were awful. Yeah, you can make claims about how the Indians were awful too. Fundamentally, you're missing the point. Stable society requires stable production of food and property and laws and the habits of democracy to protect that property. It requires that all the rights that cascade down from the concept of ownership be enforced and codified in ways that people can rely upon so that stable architecture can turn into stable and predictable commerce. I want to stress the following thing as well. It's not that the Indians were any less clever, smart, capable than the people who colonized them. It's that the Indians were less pressured by the environment to adapt than the people who came here had been. So if you've got wildly abundant streams teeming with salmon multiple times of the year, and you can smoke and preserve salmon, why bother farming? Why bother keeping pigs if you know that this time of the year there's 40 million buffalo in a massive herd on the plains? You could kill as many buffalo as you want with your bows and arrows, and you're never going to make a dent in the population, right? Why bother keeping buffaloes as livestock? There's no reason to. If you can move around and reliably anticipate various forageable things in various areas because the land is just so abundant and undeveloped, then why bother developing it? The thing is, Europe wasn't that friendly and had a much denser population of people. And the density that matters, not the total numbers. Well, I mean, the thing about the U.S. native population that's uniform among them is that the maximum amount of stable architecture, agriculture they had was the kind I described before, like planting corn or something in a given field, then returning later in the year to harvest it. That's not the kind of stability that's required for commerce to emerge. Sure, they had barter and various forms of commercial activity of some sort, but real commerce relies on something fungible that everybody agrees on as money, rather than just exchange of things of varying degrees of value that have value for varying reasons and other stuff like that. Capitalism is a naturally occurring phenomenon of money, namely a fungible form of wealth. So you could say essentially that the Indians were doomed because they hadn't developed money. More importantly, they hadn't developed currency. They had no way to reliably produce non-counterfeitable, uh, easy to carry around, multiple divisions of wealth. They didn't have an understanding of wealth as a quality that could be converted into a fungible unit from its quality as beholdens or like acquiring of stuff. So if you have a tribe of natives, there may be one guy who's got the most stuff. Maybe he's got, I don't know if certain Indian tribes maybe had multiple wives, certain ones didn't. I'm not sure if any of them did. I don't know. But let's pretend he's part of some tribe and he's got like 3 hot wives. He's got the best bows and arrows and the best TP and everything, right? But he can only even conceive of the value of those things in terms of their barter equivalent. So he's forced into this having to exchange utility for utility directly without allowing it to be in a reliable potentiality state, which is what money is, right? Money you have is the potential to gain equivalent utility to that which you provided to earn the money. So is that intermediate step where you get to have your wealth in a fungible potential state and utilize it later at your discretion and not have to have every deal be like in kind or equivalent utility. Every individual is more empowered when they can preserve their utility for some future thing that they have not anticipated yet. Hot springs and cold wells. I should type, debate, police, street urchin. Yeah, on my list of things to do. Maybe next bottle of speed we'll do that. I could just do an initial kind of response video to it. It's like, if I'm going to do that, I might as well just do a type police one. But see, it's like that kind of thing is what slows me down. But yeah, worthwhile doing. Oh, kitty, kitty, meow, 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 meow. Kitty, kitty, meow, 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 meow. Kitty, kitty, meow, 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 meow. I don't think that's what you wanted to copy and paste. Look, Marlin, you didn't want to copy and paste that, did you? No, you didn't. I'm going to temporarily make you a moderator so you can post the link you want to post. It appears you wish to post a link. I'll temporarily make you a moderator. You can post your link. And then guess what? I'll unmoderate you. That is you. As a moderator. All right. Put your put your put your URL. Put your URL in the chat. There you go. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I am talking about. Now I can see the link. Pia. What's it a link of? MBTI, why they get it wrong. Alright, I'll watch it. I'll watch it later. If I start watching it, I might as well just be prepared to respond to it, you know. I mean, is he the sort of person who actually wants to debate me? But I've always discovered is that nobody wants to debate me. They suddenly find themselves having many other things to deal with besides debating Eric. I'll have to check it out, Luke Mullen. I'll have to check it out. I guess I could do it now. It's going to require me to end the live stream if I was going to do that now. Because, I mean, I could check, if I'm going to check it out at all, I might as well check it out while I'm filming myself checking it out so I can have that going on, you know? Okay, well, I'll check it out. I'll tell you what I'll do, though, before I end this stream and consider completing that video, which I'm sure would do very well. It's not the sort of thing I normally do. I don't really like to start shit, but I do sometimes. Thing is, I already know going into whatever I'm listening to, very unlikely they're going to get through any length of video without saying something wrong. And then there's a separate issue of correcting him to the extent that he needs to be corrected. He could be right about everything, but I doubt it. And then there's the issue of what type is he? Oh. Both are interesting questions. I was going to try to frame it as one question is interesting, the other one's not, but then I realized, no, they're both interesting questions. So, let me listen to a little bit of it right now, just so I can see what it sounds like.
As I've mentioned before, all of this practical or relatable MBTI information I give you, it's not from some third-party website. It's not a general consensus on some Discord someplace. I'm not channeling Jung's ghost from some directions I found on 4chan. All of this mystical and relatable information is something that I've collected painstakingly over the past 10 years. And the first steps I took on this treacherous road of understanding MBTI were the 8 cognitive functions from the website. And believe it or not, it turns out like 90% of the community does not know that the website exists. And when it comes to learning about MBTI, most people would rather just go to CS Joseph, Melissa Talks, or get a feel for the personality types from some content creators like Frank James. Now, if you're just a casual typology enjoyer, this is probably going to be fine. You don't really care all that much. Maybe the memes are funny.
It's like, how could you survey typology people and not mention me? I mean, I get that his point is to highlight people who are wrong, but has he really never encountered me before? Or watched any of my shit? Shocking. I mean, he sounds like an ENTP. He says he's an ENTP, right? Right off the bat, I can tell you I'm believing him. I don't know what the website is he's talking about, but he's definitely Alpha Quadra. I feel like just right off the bat, it's like this guy's believably an ENTP and almost certainly Alpha Quadra, just from that little bit of watching him. Now, my intuition can be wrong, but for type policing things, I just use my intuition. I don't have the ability to ask questions and blah, 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 blah. But I would not, I can already tell you, I would not end up arresting this guy. He has plenty of qualities of an ENTP. If that's what he says he is, I think he's probably right. Just based on that little bit I heard, which was like 45 seconds. You'll note that unlike a lot of people, apparently, if you go to CS Joseph, like community, and say you're an ENTP or an INFJ or whatever, it's interesting. Well, he'll hear me after I explain shit. If I do a video about him, he'll know about me. The thing is the website he's talking about is the MBTI website. That's not a cognitive functions based system. Not really. It's kind of a bastardized muty. 10 years of studying this shit, meticulously putting things together, and not have watched any of my videos, but have familiarity sufficient to condemn C.S. Joseph. Who was the other one he condemned? Kind of hard to believe, frankly. Possible, but my mind's already racing. ENTP meets another ENTP in the wild. You know, my mind's racing. I immediately think, okay, interesting prey. That's what I think. Fun prey. This guy's got some cocky attitude to him. No doubt. Well earned. And apparently, has never heard of the sheriff in town. So yeah, anyway, apparently you gotta see it's just community, say you're an ENTP or INFJ. They immediately like say, no, you're not, no, no, no. Like, I'm gonna defend these precious labels. Well, I have no problem going, there's one. There just there aren't that many of us, you know. I can also, so it's like, Clubby SFP cannot possibly accuse me of not wanting there to be another ENTP. It's very easy for me to identify as an ENTP. All you have to do is be one. Then I won't even let you pretend to be anything else. Like KE always comes in here and is like, I'm an ESFP. You lying lies. It proceeds to present all these highly cogent arguments, as to why she's in the SFP. Sorry, Katie, there's no win in this fight. She tries to act like one for a little while, and she gives it up. She can't sustain it. She's doing it wrong anyway. Ooh. I need to go back inside where it's warmer. Why people get it wrong. What? That is such an ENCP chapter heading. Why people get it wrong. I have made so many videos called something very much like that. Okay. I don't even know how to deal with this stuff. It's like my blood's pumping now. You just have to chill out a while. Never good to do something when your blood's pumping. I feel the adrenaline rush of ensuing battle, It has to be a carefully constructed battle. Huh. Okay, I'm gonna have to end this stream because I can't stop thinking about what I'm gonna say. What I was just thinking about Luke Mullen is something like, all right, so here's the thing. First of all, I do believe you're an ENTP, and most so-called ENTPs are not. And because you're an ENTP, I'm going to explain to you the questions I think we need to answer before we can address the topic. I heard from my chatters that you spent the last 10 years gathering this. You heard from me, you spent the last 10 years gathering this information. I heard from my chatters that you'd never heard from me. You heard about me. So let me lay it out for you as follows. What is attention? How do we measure it? Where and how is it paid? And the fact is there are 4 distinct fields upon which attention is paid. Lay it out like that, If you, and say at the end of this, if you want to dispute this, you can point to another attention where another field where attention may be paid, or point to the fact that the distinction I'm drawing between these 2 fields is not a real distinction. Either of those would be adequate rebuttals. Treat him like an equal, right? See how he does with it. He's not prepared for a schooling, but if I stress that I have faith in his intellectual honesty and see that this is a highly compelling accounting of things. We'll see what he says, Try to come across as collaborative in some regard. Let's make some disclaimers. Okay. It's a good like percentage for 900 views, 72 likes. It's a good number of thumbs. Yeah. I mean, I would just say it's not so much slow playing the hand as saying, I'm not trying to play you. Let me show you all the cards here. And, I trust you to negate it as hard as you can. But I also trust you to compare it to the alternatives. Honestly. There's also this pile of empirics I have from having typed all these people asking these various questions, etc. I'm trying anything with you because you seem like a smart guy. It's still going to be a test, you know. I'm not testing him, but it's going to be a test for him because he's going to be put in a pickle. But his channel's probably young enough that he can make some turns, it's possible. I like this idea. Sounds interesting. Sounds fun. Do you ever see what he looks like, or is it just this animation of him? Well, I mean, look, I'm going to position it so I'm going to say, note this is a specific claim I'm making that you can respond to in the following ways. I think I quote Einstein's thing about reading different kinds of theories. All right, well, I'm going to end the stream now. I think I might do this. And see how it plays. Thanks for being here. Don't forget to eat plenty of cheese.